You know that feeling when you look in the mirror and your eyes just zoom in on every single flaw? Or maybe you're flipping through old photos and you think, wow, I actually looked great back then. But you totally forget that you were just as hard on yourself at the time. Well, today, we're going to dive into all the subtle, often subconscious signs that you are way more attractive than you give yourself credit for.
Let me ask you this. Are you your own toughest critic? I think for most of us, the answer is a huge, resounding yes. We have this tendency to put our own perceived imperfections under a microscope, and in doing that, we completely miss the big picture, the one that everyone else is seeing. This habit, this self-criticism, it creates a massive blind spot, and it stops us from seeing ourselves the way others actually do.
And look, this isn't just a feeling or some hunch. It's actually backed by science. A study from the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that people can underestimate their own attractiveness by as much as 20%, a full 20%. That is a gigantic gap between how you see yourself and how the world actually sees you.
So here's the kicker. Because we're so wrapped up in our own heads, in our own internal monologue of criticism, we completely miss the constant stream of evidence that's right there in front of us. I'm talking about those subtle, unspoken signals that people give off when they find someone appealing. And that's exactly what we're going to decode today.
Okay, let's start with the most raw and honest feedback you can possibly get: body language. These are the nonverbal cues. This is how the body shows attraction, a lot of times completely unconsciously, without a single word ever being said.
Just think about it for a second. That sudden, genuine smile you get from a stranger you're just passing on the street, or when you catch someone holding your gaze for just a beat too long, or you notice that when you're talking, people physically lean in, to close that gap. They might even start mimicking your gestures without realizing it. These things aren't just random, okay? They are really powerful signs of appeal.
The science behind a stranger's smile is pretty fascinating. According to Dr. David Perrett, a psychologist over at the University of St. Andrews, it's not always just about being polite. A lot of the time, it's a genuine, subconscious reaction. It's like this quick, fleeting little nod to the charm you're putting out there without even trying. And this idea of mirroring is just brilliant. When someone unconsciously copies your posture, or maybe how you're holding your hands, it's called the chameleon effect. Research by Dr. Tanya Chartrand shows us this really instinctive thing we do to build a bond, to build rapport. It's a nonverbal way of saying, hey, I like you, I feel a connection with you.
All right, so now that we've covered body language, let's see how this stuff shows up in our day-to-day lives. We're going to start reinterpreting some super common interactions that you might have been brushing off as just coincidence, but are actually clues that have been hiding in plain sight this whole time.
So, think of these things as a chain of evidence. First, do you ever feel like strangers come up to you a lot for little things like asking for the time or for directions? Second, have you ever noticed that sometimes people get a little nervous or just act kind of different around you? And third, does it ever catch you off guard when someone brings up a tiny little detail you told them weeks ago, something you barely remember saying? On their own, they might seem like nothing, but when you put them all together, they start to paint a really interesting picture.
So why does this stuff happen? Well, social psychology actually gives us a really clear answer. Studies have shown over and over that attractive people are subconsciously seen as more trustworthy, more competent, and, you guessed it, more approachable. That's why a stranger might feel more comfortable asking you for directions. And when people are drawn to you, their brains are basically hardwired to pay way more attention and remember more things about you.
Okay, this next one, it's a bit of a mind bender. It really flips what most of us think about compliments on its head. It's this paradox where two totally opposite situations can actually point to the very same conclusion, that people think you're attractive.
So on one side, you have the really obvious sign, right? You're basically a compliment magnet. People are always telling you that you look great, nice outfit, whatever. But then, on the complete other end of the spectrum, you might get almost no compliments about your looks. And why is that? Well, because people see you and they just assume you hear it all the time. They figure you already know. They think, what's one more compliment from me gonna do? Or they might even be a little intimidated.
Clinical psychologist Dr. Kanchi Wijasarekar explains this perfectly. This split happens because some people are going to be direct and shower you with praise, while others will hold back, and not because they don't find you attractive, but because they do. So the big takeaway here is this: don't measure your attractiveness by how many compliments you get. The volume, whether it's super high or super low, can tell a much more interesting story.
So, up until now, we've been really focused on all these external signs from other
people. But let's pivot and get to the real heart of this, to what truly matters. Because real, lasting attraction, it's rarely just about what's on the surface. It's about those inner qualities that create a kind of undeniable magnetism.
I mean, when you really look at what people consistently say is attractive, it's these traits that always come out on top. A great sense of humor that can make people belly laugh. A quiet, solid confidence that comes from really knowing who you are. That kind of hard-to-define magnetic personality. A mind that's curious and full of wisdom. And maybe the most powerful of all, just having the courage to be real and vulnerable with people.
So the bottom line is this: it's not about being perfect. Actually, it's pretty much the opposite. The way you own your unique quirks and how you carry your so-called imperfections, that's what makes you compelling. It's what makes you human, and it's what people connect with. True allure is always, always about substance over surface.
Now, let's just touch on one last, more complex idea here. Because while being seen as attractive definitely has its perks in our society, it's also really important to know that it can be a pretty complicated experience. It really can be a double-edged sword.
Psychologists have a term for this. They call it the beauty bias, and it's a well-documented thing where people who are seen as attractive are often given all these unfair social advantages. But the flip side is that they can also face some serious downsides, like being objectified or facing totally unrealistic expectations. For example, maybe they get a job based more on their looks than their skills, which can leave them feeling like they constantly have to prove they're more than just a pretty face.
So, as we wrap things up, I want to leave you with this question to think about. Now that you're armed with this new awareness of the subtle signals, of the deeper qualities of attraction, what are you going to notice differently tomorrow, both in yourself and in the people that you meet? Maybe, just maybe, the evidence that you're looking for has been there all along, just waiting for you to finally see it.